Kevin, before you got into the industry, did you think that these next level types of skill sets would be exercised on a job site? Did you think people out on a construction site had the capabilities or even the need to see things through this type of lens?
Well, no, because I don't know, cartoon depictions of construction workers.
Mhm.
It's, the stereotypical big, broad shoulder, animalistic person with a gruff beard and a cigar hanging out of the right side of their mouth, being very loud and boisterous and not yielding at all. So when you enter an industry like that, you assume that's going to be the norm. And not to say that there aren't those individuals,
Sure.
but there is a degree of sophistication that wasn't transparent to me until we get into the industry. And then it's like when you get there and you're like, duh, you're building you're building a 50-floor commercial tower in the middle of New York City in Herald Square or Times Square, and you got to manage a workforce of 700 to 800 people, depending on how big that job is. Of course, it's got to be a level of sophistication. Of course, it's got to be a level of being engaging, being thoughtful, these leadership behaviors that we don't intuitively assign to the construction industry.
Oh, yeah. That is the voice of the eloquent and sophisticated Kevin Chase. He's a father of two and a phenomenal representation of construction professionals. It's interesting. He sort of just kind of landed in construction, and you're going to get to hear more about that, as well as Kevin schooling us on the value of vulnerability and introspection. And then we get all riled up, and there's a call to action for all of our trade partners out there that are working to find their way through this industry and their place in the community. We got some work to do. And by the time you are listening to this episode, we will have broken past the 2,500 download milestone. That is 100% due to you. Thank you, L&M family. There is no way we would have reached this milestone without you. So thank you for the hours that you've spent listening to my voice, the hours you've spent listening to Renee, and the hours you dedicated to learning from our guests. For sharing with your friends, that's super meaningful. And thank you for the reviews, for the feedback y'all are sharing. You make me feel valued. All I can say is thank you very much. So before I get on teary-eyed, here we go, baby. Mr. Kevin Chase. We have the soothingest voice in the country coming from Mr. Kevin Chase. What's going on, Kevin?
What's up, Jesse? How are you, man?
It was fun connecting with you earlier this week. You are officially the best looking RLM in terms of now.
I've been waiting for this day. For sure.
I love it, man. So thank you for taking time out of your morning, man. It's Saturday and you got stuff to do, so thank you. And we will jump right into it. So for the L&M family out there, what would you like them to know about Mr. Kevin Chase?
Well, first, I'm a dad. I got two boys, 12 and 7 years old, and they are my heartbeat. Everything that I do is really for them. And it's interesting. Children, as much stress as they can cause, they actually are probably the most cathartic thing that we have. To come home and let them talk about their day, or just a random hug or a joke on the car ride home relieves the stresses of the day. So I enjoy thoroughly being a parent. I am in the construction industry, been in the construction industry for a little more than 18 years. I'm currently serving as a regional lean manager for a large GC. Specifically, my role is in New York. And what that affords me the opportunity to do is to do the thing I love the most, which is contradictory to my natural behavior. I'm naturally an introvert. I'm sure you would not have known that. So being in this industry forces you to work and think outside of the box. So in order for me to kind of sustain just my own career progression and just to be generally happy, I had to learn to build tools and behaviors that will contradict my natural inclination to just work alone. So that actually has made me a better person by working in this industry where you're forward facing, interacting with people, helping solve problems all day has really made me a better person, made me come out of my shell. So I enjoy what I do most days. The days that I don't enjoy it are days that we all have. They're not enjoyable, but the good days far outweigh the bad. So I'm happy to be here. I'm really excited about our conversation here today.
10-4. So 18 years in the construction industry. Where did you start?
With the company I'm with, or just in general? It's
Just in
interesting.
general.
Yeah, great question. So I've told this story before. It was completely by accident that I ended up in the industry.
Okay.
It started in high school, junior year in high school. I was actually maybe junior high school because what put me into that situation. And the junior high school that I went to was a specialized school, so I was able to take high school courses. So I was kind of ahead when I started as a freshman. So by the time I got to my junior year in high school, I was really taking AP courses. I was taking some core courses, but a lot of electives just to fill up my day.
Yep.
So I got to junior year and I had pretty much exhausted all of the electives that my high school had to offer. And my guidance counselor gave me 2 options for junior year electives. He said, you can take, at the time it's called keyboarding, so which is typewriting, a typewriting class, or a mechanical drafting class. In junior high school, I did my 8th grade year was typewriting, and it was the most painful experience that you can give to a 12 or 13-year-old. So, of course, I went to mechanical drafting, not really knowing much about it, other than this is the skill that architects learn when they're drawing, making their details, creating their plans for buildings, etc. So I gravitated to that again, just because there wasn't really any other choice. But it was probably the best decision, accidentally, that I ever made. Where I got into the class and I had a really great teacher. She triggered this passion that I didn't know I had. Right. So when you think about like growing up and as a kid, and for me in kindergarten, my favorite time of the day was building blocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
That 30-minute or 40-minute time in the center of your kindergarten classroom, and you get to just do. So that rekindled kind of that feeling by creating something from scratch, something that was in your mind, and then making it concrete by T square and mechanical pencil, building something that was in your mind and making it real. So from there, I continued on in the course load. So it went through the end of my senior year in high school. And during that period, I decided that I wanted to go to school for architecture just because I wanted to continue that feeling of being able to create something. What was really interesting, it led me to the path of the organization that I'm with now. I would say the beginning of my senior year, my professor saw I had an inclination, was good at it. He said, this company offers a scholarship. It's both an internship and a scholarship for 4 years. I think you'd be great at it. I'm only allowed to give one scholarship application for the entire school, and I'm going to give it to you to submit. So thankfully, I submitted. I got into the program, etc. I ended up going to CUNY, it's a city college here in New York, and majoring in architecture. And I did that for 2 years, so freshman and sophomore year. And I realized by the end of my second year in architecture as a degree is really rigorous. It's intensive. You
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of hours in studio drafting, plus your own course work. In my case, I was in the honors program, so I don't know, I was doing like 18 or 19 credits of just schoolwork, plus 2 4-hour sessions of studio every week for architecture. So there wasn't a lot of sleep those first 2 years. So I suffered a bit of burnout, and then I realized that once you graduate with a degree in architecture, you got to go do this 3-year internship. You're making $35,000 a year. And for the next 15 years of your life, you're sitting behind a CAD station drafting details.
Mm.
That did not appeal to me at
That's not
all.
recess. That's
No,
not recess.
no, not at all, not at all, not at all. So thankfully, I had again another counselor that said you might be happier in construction management at another school, still within the CUNY system. So I took a semester off because frankly I was burned out and I didn't have the maturity to figure out how to just push through at that time.
Sure.
So I recognized that at 19 years old that I'm not mentally strong enough to just figure this out on my own. I need to do a reset. So I took that year off. I ended up working for a reproduction company, literally like taking companies who had files and paper. So like we worked with the sewer company here in New York City. We went into their office and they had books and books of these old maps and drawings that we digitized for them, just so that they had, able to access their archive without having to open up these old dusty drawers. So I did that for, I don't know, for 4 or 5 months. And then I was able to reconnect with the organization that I'm with now. They allowed me to defer my internship and the scholarship because I started in architecture. After that 2-year period and then my semester off, they said, yeah, of course you can come, you can do your internship. And I ended up with this organization. Pretty much the rest is history. So it's interesting, just by taking a chance on myself and being naturally curious about something. So mechanical drafting, I had no idea what that was. And then having a conviction to say, no, this isn't for me, actually put me on a path. And that's something that I want to be able to just instill in my own kids. Sometimes we force children as parents to do things that we have done or the ways that we have experienced things. But that wasn't my model. My model was I was allowed to be curious. I'm not saying I didn't have challenging discussions with my mom. It was definitely like, what are you doing? But by allowing, she gave me the space to kind of become an adult, kind of at my own speed. And I made those decisions, and I'm truly thankful because it put me on this path where I now have an opportunity every single day to spark curiosity within my own team, and within my own organization by asking questions, challenging status quo, making folks a little bit uncomfortable. So again, that pathway, I had to go to that pathway to end up where I am right now because that skill set that was developed has helped me, and I think is having an impact on the folks that I interact with on a day-to-day basis.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So when you were developing this skill of introspection and standing firm on what you felt, because there's no case study to go against, it's what you're feeling and what you're experiencing in the moment. When you were developing that, were you aware that you were developing a new skill or a new muscle, or were you able to put your finger on that in hindsight?
Yeah, no, that's something I can probably reflect on now as I'm talking to you. As you're going through it, again, as an 18 or 19-year-old, you just know that you're unhappy or fed up, and that at the time I just felt like what I was doing just wasn't making me happy any longer. There wasn't a self-awareness on why what was happening around me was happening. How did I contribute to that situation? Could I have done something differently? It was more just like, I'm 18, I'm 19, I'm just gonna do it. And just not recognizing whether it was a good or a bad decision. It was just like, I just need to do this today in order to feel better tomorrow. That was really my mindset. I don't think I was smart enough or intelligent enough to be that aware of what was happening.
You say you weren't intelligent enough, but I'm going to challenge that, because what you described in your academic career before university it sounds like you were like hella academically inclined.
Sure.
And an observation I have is, the typical school format or formula is, for some folks, can be less than what is necessary. I mean, if you're taking electives your last 2 years of high school,
Yeah.
right? Like there's a challenge there, but also the environment. And you mentioned your mom,
Yeah.
and it sounds like your mom created the space for you to do that exploration. Was
Yeah.
that like a typical element in your environment as you were coming
No.
up?
Absolutely, absolutely not. So my background is I was born in Barbados, and my whole family is from there. So deep West Indian roots. So for those that maybe don't have insight into what family life and academic pressures are like in a West Indian environment. It's very intensive, very strict. And my mom was a single mom as well, so
Mm.
she had to wear a few hats.
Mm-hmm.
So giving a child, from and through her perspective, freedoms to do anything was not in her makeup. And you also got to think about like when and where I grew up. I grew up in Brooklyn. I was in Barbados. I left it when I was 2. I lived in Brooklyn my entire life after that. And I'm an 80s baby. So late 80s, early 90s in New York City
Yeah.
was a rough place to be, right? There was a crack epidemic, there was a heroin epidemic. I didn't live in the greatest of neighborhoods. So given a child a freedom in that arena was not an option. So she
Mm.
was super, super strict. And I would have said before high school, a lot of decisions about where I went to school, the things I was interested in, any extracurricular activities, she was definitely heavy-handed in that environment. But I do believe that she recognized that there's a transition from being a child to being an adult. And in order for an adult to really sustain, again, in the environment that I was raised in, you have to be thoughtful. You got to be allowed to understand your actions have repercussions or consequences. So I think it was intentional. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, that she allowed me to navigate that space, because I think she realized how heavy-handed our relationship was. And I was not going to have that crutch throughout life. I had to learn to be
Mm.
a man,
Mm.
allowing me to kind of say, I'm leaving school and I'm just not going to go for a semester at least, was something that she said, okay, if this is something that you feel you need to do, it's fine. Don't ask me for a dollar. You gotta figure it out. You gotta go find a job. But if this is what you feel is necessary and important for you, then go ahead and go do it. And there was, like I said, there were tumultuous conversations, definitely oversimplifying the
Yeah,
dynamic
yeah.
nature of that conversation. There was some tough language for sure, but in the end, she did allow that to occur. So there was some maturation on her part as being a parent, and recognizing that there's times where you kind of just got to let go and let your child experience things. And I think I'm learning that that's something that's truly powerful and impactful. There's times where you got to intervene. There's times where you got to be a coach, and there's times you got to let folks fail. Because sometimes when
Mm.
you let folks fail, they now have a deeper appreciation of kind of this external voice, this objective voice to say, hey, that was wrong. Let's mourn that for only a moment. Now are you ready to have a discussion about, what are some real potential opportunities on pathways for whatever you define as success? And it's actually served me well. I feel like this is a therapy session. Just
Yeah.
because this is that literally everything that I just talked about are all of the tools that I use today, again, in our interaction with friends, family, colleagues, peers, etc.
I'm gonna. I see some. I don't know what the word is. A coupling here, and I want to vet that out. You talked about being an introvert, and the role that you serve in is absolutely contrary to introverted behavior. And when you were talking about that, you mentioned that you built tools and behaviors to compensate that. And as you're talking about this experience with your mom and the decision you were making about your education and your career path, there was from me, also having come from a single mom family, like it's real. They don't play, they don't got time to play. My assumption is that there was some degree of nonconformity. How are those things related? The nonconformity, stepping outside the lane, and building those tools and behaviors to cope with your comfort zone.
Yeah. So childhood, the rebellion didn't exist. I think the environment wasn't conducive to being rebellious. The word heavy-handed is multifunctional, all right, and
Mhm.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah.
So the having to work and think outside of the box really happened when I started to work for the organization that I work for now, where it was forced upon me, right? Working in the construction industry, it's a very tough, very dynamic, very boisterous, highly interactive environment where if you are meek, you get swallowed up. If you are
Oh,
meek, you don't have an opportunity to have a voice.
Mm.
And there were instances very early on in my career. I don't know, am I allowed to curse on here?
Yes,
Yeah, so I'll just give you one example. I promise I won't use profanity throughout the
you're
entire
good.
conversation, but I think it's impactful. Where I was interning for this organization, and my boss, really smart, intelligent guy. He was a young PM at the time, maybe in his late 20s. But he taught me a lot, and I guess he realized my inclination to just be quiet was not going to serve me well. So I was sitting at my desk. It's funny. I was sitting at my desk, and he gave me a list of names to call contractors because we were working on trying to reconcile some change orders. And he'd give me this, I thought was busy work. Call these list of 5 contractors, get them on the phone. We need their current change order logs. I need it by end of day. But as an introvert, I don't know, maybe I was scared to pick up the phone. This is still relatively early on in my internship. I was probably scared to pick up the phone because like I'm gonna pick up and talk to some rough, gruff person on the other end of the phone. And here's this, I think I was 21 at the time.
Yeah.
Here's this 21-year-old trying to convince you to give me something that my boss says that I need. I wasn't able to do it. So it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And he came by, he says, how you do it? How'd you do it? I was like, he says, like, show me what you got so far. And I was like, I didn't have anything. So he says, so what have you been doing all day? I was like, well, I made a couple calls and they said they would get back to me and I just haven't called them back yet. He says, I know, but that was 8 o'clock this morning. Have you called them back? Did you tell them how urgent it was? Well, they said they were going to call me back. So I'm just going to wait because my inclination is I don't need
Yeah.
to interact with you. Like you told me you're gonna do something, you're gonna do it. And he said, pick up the fucking phone right now and call them. And you don't get off the phone until they get you what you need. And he walked off. And from that moment on, I said, if I don't get my shit together today, if I don't
Mm.
deliver against this, if I don't make my voice heard and interact and demand what I need, this is not going to be it. I already shifted careers in my mind once or twice already. I don't know what I'm going to do after this. This is what I feel passionate about. So from that point forward, I recognize that you've got to be able to do things that you are uncomfortable doing in order to get to where you feel like you need to be. And that was a jarring experience. It took me 15 minutes to collect myself. Honestly, I was shaking. There was probably a couple of tears at the time, just
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
no one had ever spoken to me like that. I was a golden child growing up, so no one challenged me
Yeah.
like that. No one pushed me like that. So it was really eye opening. And I think that experience, it was very intentional for him to speak that way because he never spoke to me like that before or after, ever. And I probably had a relationship with him professionally for like 2 years, and he left the organization. And it was always supportive coaching, but in that one specific moment, he knew I needed that in order to do what needed to get done.
Okay, so that was one of many indicators that said, "Ooh, I got to play a different game here because these people respond to different types of communication."
Right. And then
And
what was so interesting is this one, I'll never forget it because I'm relatively close to this one trade partner today, where I called him after that. I might have called him 4 times in 45 minutes saying, where's the stuff? And I remember a month later, he went to my project exec and he says, if you don't hire this guy, I will. Project exec said, well, I don't, why? How do you even know him? He's an intern. How do you know him?
yeah, yeah,
He was like, anyone that can pick up the phone, he was the owner of the company. He's like, anyone that can pick up the phone and be as diligent and persistent as he was, regardless of his skill level, acumen, and construction, that's a person that I want working for me. He
yeah.
says there's not a lot of people that he has within his own organization are like that. So hearing that and hearing him say this in front of my boss's boss's boss, that's when it clicked. Like, oh shit, I gotta okay. Being an introvert isn't going to work. Being this other way is the pathway for me to be successful here. Let's figure out how much more I can do with that in a respectful way. What else can
I,
I actually do? Because that is something that folks gravitate to.
I think the key word there is the respectful way.
Sure.
Because I've done dealt with people that, man, I just don't want to talk to them because they're jerks, they're rude, they're inconsiderate, but persistence absolutely necessary. And when it's respectful, you can't help but appreciate that. So you're leading a team. How many folks are on the team there?
Oh, it fluctuates. I think right now there are 5 of us in total. So I have 4 other team members right
Okay.
now.
And I know because I've had the privilege of spending time with you and talking one on one and outside of the workspace and also in the workspace. You roll different. You
Mm.
show up differently than the status quo. How, I guess it's a two questions. How do you impart that to your team members? And also, how do they respond to it?
Honesty and transparency. From the time that I'm in the position that I'm in now, from the time I got that position, it was important to me because I was following a legacy person. So in our organization, specifically in New York, there was only one other person who had held my role before. This person is a very senior person within our organization, very respected, brilliant, intelligent, thoughtful, emotionally intelligent. Just like you said, he has a presence when he fills a room, and that presence fosters this immediate amount of respect and reverence. So there was tremendous shoes to fill in
Yeah.
walking into that. So my first conversation with my team was, I'm not him. I won't be him. I have flaws. There are things about this job that I'm supposed to be technically proficient at that I'm not, because this wasn't my world. I grew up in our organization through operations, so in our construction family, and this role is very specialized. So you all have been in these positions, I don't know, on average maybe 2 years, and I have to now learn this on the go. I'm going to depend on you, frankly, for teaching me on how to do my job. So I'm always going to be honest with you. I don't know something, I'm going to tell you I don't know something. All I ask is that you be patient
Mhm.
with me. And in return, I ask for that same level of honesty and transparency. If you're struggling with something, I can help you with managing conflict and dealing with people, how to be generally organized. I can help you with that. So that's the partnership that we're going to develop as a team, where it's not so much as boss to subordinates. It's,
Mhm.
I have a strength, you fill in these gaps, or I have a weakness, you fill in these gaps, and vice versa. We're going to build a true team environment where we look at each other as partners. Yes, there are going to be instances where, as the boss, I'm going to say we have to do this, and my expectation is that we do it. But that's not going to be, I won't be heavy-handed with that. I think it's more important when you are building a team, or when you have not even a team that you're responsible for, but in any team, if you have these moments where you allow for freedom of thought, speech, people feel empowered to be challenging, to be contradictory, those are when you're going to have the most successful experiences. But you can only get there if you set of these values being honest and transparent. Just tell the truth, because when we solve a problem and it's based in something that is fact, is based in your own truths, we're actually going to solve the right problems. Those things are things that we reinforce within our group consistently. So as far as imparting that, I try to be as genuine as I can. I'm not political at all. Maybe it has been a little bit of my downfall, where I'm not walking around and trying to make these external relationships just for the sake of self-improvement. I'm really intentional about the relationships that I build, because I don't really have time, at work or outside of work, to have things that are just surface. Like, if I'm going
Mhm.
to make an investment in you, or in a group, or in a team, I'm going to do it in a really genuine way, because I want to get something out of this relationship, and hopefully you get something out of it as well. That's kind of just a general tone that we have in our group. And I think it resonates because they are all like that, where they'll show up to a job site now, and they'll say, like, it's so interesting. I had a new hire to our organization. He didn't know anything about construction at all. And he struggled maybe for the first 6 months. I said to him, don't feel discouraged. Let's change your approach. When you go to a job site and you're there to help them about lean and how to identify waste and how to talk about behaviors of collaboration, maybe you start a conversation that's like, hey, I don't know how to build a masonry wall. I've never done one before. Can you talk to me about what that means? Can you talk to me about what a typical day looks like for you? Can I just spend 2 days and walk with you as a
Mm,
superintendent and go walk with you and just see what you see and understand what you see from the premise of that I've never experienced before. So I just want to be able to understand it. There is something magical in our industry. I can't really speak about any other industry, but when you ingratiate yourself to someone else,
yeah.
when you present vulnerability in an environment that's so tough and so rigid, people gravitate towards that, and it presents as being genuine. So you're able to foster those relationships. So I bring his example up specifically because now a year later, he's completely valued. I can send him to a team. He's working with a team right now where the environment there of the project manager, the project exec, typical in your face, moving fast, kind of aggressive, and he can stand his own too because he walked in and said, I don't know shit about what you guys are doing,
Mhm.
but I know what your problem is. Let's sit down and build a plan to help solve your problem. And then you can feed me how you want to build your job. And they gravitated to him right away. He's 24 years old, working with folks who've been in the industry 25 years, right? So that
Yep.
that development can only happen by being humble, by being vulnerable, and then automatically you create this bond, you create this environment of respect, which allows you just to be really good at your job. So whenever he leaves our group, maybe in the next year or so, he's going to be so ahead of the curve
Yeah.
relative to his peers because he's developed a skill that isn't something that's focused on in the industry, and that's just caring about the person next to you, being respectful and being humble. So I'm really excited for his future specifically, but that's a microcosm of the kind of dynamic that we like to create in our group.
Oh man, that's amazing. What you're talking about is like next level stuff, right? People are researching it. There's all kinds of books of different components and elements of it. But like you're doing it, and you're doing it with through a simple formula that has served you well. And it brings me back to like the purpose of the podcast is to elevate the image of careers in the trades. And for our L&M family out there, even new listeners, I want you to hang on to Kevin's answer to the next question. So the question is, Kevin, before you got into the industry, did you think that these next level types of skill sets would be exercised on a job site? Did you think people out on a construction site had the capabilities or even the need to see things through this type of lens?
Well, no, because I don't know, cartoon depictions of construction workers.
Mhm.
It's, the stereotypical big, broad shoulder, animalistic person with a gruff beard and a cigar hanging out of the right side of their mouth, being very loud and boisterous and not yielding at all. So when you enter an industry like that, you assume that's going to be the norm. And not to say that there aren't those individuals,
Sure.
but there is a degree of sophistication that wasn't transparent to me until we get into the industry. And then it's like when you get there and you're like, duh, you're building you're building a 50 floor commercial tower in the middle of New York City in Herald Square or Times Square, and you got to manage a workforce of 700 to 800 people, depending on how big that job is. Of course, it's got to be a level of sophistication. Of course, it's got to be a level of being engaging, being thoughtful, these leadership behaviors that we don't intuitively assign to the construction industry. Like it's almost a disservice. Like I think I spent the first year doing a lot of like, wow, wow. Like the conversations that you have are so thought provoking, where they're really, really intelligent people, and you just I don't know what I thought. You just think about as the guys from the hood, and they just show up with hammers and carpenter's belt, and they kind of just show up one day and they put it together based off experience. And I think that was the most eye-opening thing as a young man in the industry, that these introspectives that you're referring to, this general self-awareness, these conditions of having, again, really, really thoughtful conversations where folks spend way more time on problem solving and being collaborative versus just the thou shalt
Mm.
mentality, right? And it's still eye opening to see. And what's interesting is that as in our organization, that shift is even taking the next step, right? So that culture's been there, but it was masked by that stereotype. It was masked by just the frenetic pace that you don't get to see all the planning and work that gets done behind the scenes. Now folks are starting to realize, hey, we're consistent in our behaviors about being thoughtful and engaging and collaborative. We actually have better outcomes. If we shift away from the thou shalt or do as I say and more about, hey, I don't know how to build this. You do because you've built this for 30 years.
Yep.
Can you tell me what's important to you? What are your values? And we can build a plan around that. Can you tell me what you need to be successful? And I can clear your obstacles. Like that's a very different dynamic
Yeah.
versus go build it. I don't give a fuck how you build it. Just get it done by the 31st versus, hey, we need to be done by the 31st. What can I do to support you
Mm.
to clear the deck to make sure that when you show up to work, all you're worried about is building it? It's a few word difference, but it's a very different approach to building. And I think we're starting to see success. And it's when I say I enjoy most days for what I do, is seeing those light bulbs go off on even some of the most grizzled folks in the industry where you want my opinion, like
Hmm.
it's
Mind
rewarding.
blowing. Yeah.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is. It really is.
Oh man, so I'm gonna say this in Jesse speak. What I just heard you say is that construction isn't just hella sexy, it's also pretty damn sophisticated.
Sure.
Right? And we don't, the media, maybe not even media, just the general view or idea that people have about construction is that big, broad shoulder, cussing, yelling, dirty construction worker. But again, L&M family, if you can't tell just by his voice, this man is sexy and sophisticated, baby. Oh yeah, he's bringing the stuff, man. He's bringing the stuff. I love, man, Kevin. Here's the thing: is I'm a plumber,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of time that I spent really living or embodying the stereotype, the cussing, shit talking, cat calling, all that mess. So I didn't do a good job of representing our industry. And it took a good decade or so for me to take responsibility for that. And now, having a relationship with you and being around you, like I've never seen you do anything other than represent us well. And so that's a call out to all of the trade partners out there. Like, man, pick up your game because we're here to support each other. And if you're acting a fool, like you don't have to. Like we know the depth of your intellect and the drive and the passion that you have within yourself. You don't have to be showing out and being a big dummy. Like you can be you, and we got you. Now we got a long way to go in the industry to get there, but we got to do it, man. To roll with you, man, it's a big deal for me. It means something. It's really, really important. So that takes us to here's the hard question. Well, I don't know if it's hard. You know, looking at the learnings and missteps, the title of the podcast was a reflection I had on really how I got here and where I'm going.
Mhm.
And it's through a series of learnings and missteps, right? I done a lot of dumb shit and I learned from it. And it's translated into hell, just you and I being here having this conversation, which is a miracle in itself. And so for you, Kevin, is there a particular learning that you've had that was a result of a very painful misstep?
Yeah, so I don't want to sound cocky or arrogant.
Okay.
So I was an intern with my organization beginning in 2003.
Oh man, just when it was getting good. Yep, it's me again here peddling the L&M backstage pass If you want to get the rest of this juicy goodness, and it's a really damn good lesson that Mr. Kevin shares with us, hit us up on patreon.com/learnings and missteps. Appreciate y'all putting up with this little irritation. And back to the show.
That was like my hallmark moment through my career. And like I said, what I learned in that period has really served me well. Whenever I'm struggling, I see myself getting a little bit upset. I know sometimes we talk and I don't think you think that I can get upset. I do. I internalize a lot of my anger. I'm a raging lunatic on the inside. But in those moments where you feel like this person just isn't getting it, I stop and I just say, okay, just talk. And I listen. When you allow those moments, you get the value that you're looking for.
So surrender to vulnerability and first principle lean, identify customer value.
Yeah.
And I can't identify that if my mouth is moving.
Right.
There's a couple things or something I see consistent. You mentioned that you were on this pendulum swing, the opposite end. So you came in introverted, meek, and they helped you see like that's not going to serve you well in this environment. And you went all the way to the other side, brash and proud and loud, I'm sure. And you're a big dude, so that just amplifies that. And you talk about, was Auntie Kathleen?
Yeah.
So she came in a very difficult environment, which there's no excuse for it. We just need to do better for ladies coming into our industry. And she has multiple layers of skin because she is fighting so many different battles. And so she swung to the opposite end of what may be contrary to her nature. What would you recommend to people to get back to center, like to get away from the extreme?
I think it's these points of reflection. Like, do you take opportunities to really be critical about your behavior, your speech, how people feel when they talk to you? When people talk to you, do they seem like they're telling you the truth, or they're giving you what's really bothering them, or do they give you one or two word responses? Like those are points of reflection to say there's something about the dynamic of this interaction that this person doesn't feel comfortable being comprehensive in what it is that they actually need. So there's got to be something that I'm doing that's not creating that actual environment. That's a major indicator. If folks are not always happy to see you, and if you are emotionally intelligent, you can feel when there's tension in any interaction, whether or not you choose to acknowledge it. So sensing that tension, there's something dynamic that you have built that is allowing that to manifest itself. So in those moments, you've got to be your toughest critic in that point and say, what is it that I'm doing that potentially is contributing to the situation? And frankly, asking others. Like, it's a hard thing to do, but sometimes we're just self-auditing. Maybe somebody that I don't have the best relationship with is, I'll walk in and say, hey, can we go down and go have coffee or have lunch? And then say, hey, is there something I could be doing a bit better? Or like, what is your perception of the work that we're doing? Fortunately, folks have been relatively honest with me throughout my career, which is giving you those kind of mile markers to let you know, okay, there's still more work to be done. Because even though I might have been now working on being more inclusive and being a better listener, I still have this experience where this person's perception of me isn't reflective of that. They only know who I am today. They don't know what I've worked on, right? So there's a point where you got to say, fuck, I thought I was becoming a better listener, but this person's experience isn't that. They don't see me as such. They don't know where I started. They don't know how arrogant I potentially was in my past. So there's more that needs to be done. But you've got to be a self-auditor, and you've got to be willing to hear bad news. You got to take your ego out of things. And I think it's really hard for people to do, because again, in our industry, having that a little bit of bravado is something that we think is necessary. And being vulnerable is sometimes looked at as a point of weakness. But as I've learned, that vulnerability is actually probably paramount for success.
Absolutely. It's courageous to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I haven't come across a wall that vulnerability doesn't knock down.
Right.
It's probably out there. I just haven't found it yet.
Yeah.
Damn, dropping gems, baby. All right, so we're coming up on time, and we'll get into the last question. And I suspect this is going to be pretty damn enormous, man. So the question is, what fingerprint do you intend to leave on the world going forward?
That I care genuinely about others' success. I care genuinely about my impact on those that are around me. And I want to be able to leave a legacy where it's not about me, where I'm not the center of the story. I don't want to be the protagonist. Like one of something that you and I talked about, one of the most rewarding experiences that I have to this day is not being the smartest person in the room. I can be the smartest person in the room. The most rewarding experiences that I've had is being able to ask a maybe naive, maybe a curious question, but asking a question to the smartest person in the room that they may be struggling with, and watching their mind work and the light bulb literally go off on top of their head, and them finding the answer themselves. Seeing that person kind of strip down whatever those perceptions that they may have had about the problem that we're trying to solve together, and them thinking outside of the box just based off of and seemingly innocuous point that was made, and it's watching them kind of elevating, use that intelligence that they have, that high acumen as a high performer, to really come up with a really sophisticated solution. That is what I want to be known for, and that's actually the behaviors I would love to see others kind of adopt, where it's not about me, because in almost every circumstance, and in our industry specifically, it's team centric. So if you have the ability to make those who are around you really realize and capitalize on their potential, you're going to have a really high performing team. You may not have the A+ players on your team, but if each one of those individuals realizes their maximum potential, whatever that potential is, you're going to have an A+ team regardless.
Yes.
And I want to continue to build behaviors where I can continue to be the catalyst for that kind of thinking and that kind of adoption and that kind of performance. I don't care about accolades. I don't care that that team solved the problem and they say Kevin is the person that got us there. I care that you all now, your lives are easier, better, and you get to go home at 5 o'clock instead of going home at 7, trying to navigate through the bullshit of, if your work, your day is easier, and I've had a little bit to do with that, hopefully I get my wings when we're done here. That's where I'm at with that.
Damn it, man. Oh, I love you, Kevin. I mean, for real, you are an amazing human being, brother. I just the depth that you bring, and the care. Like it's always been evident to me. I think the first time you and I met in person was in Fort Worth at the all hands meeting, the very first all hands meeting we had. I think you were like pretty damn fresh to the role. But the way you carried yourself, I was like, I like this guy. Like, I'm not sure exactly why. I mean, looking back now, you didn't show up with the expert hat on.
Yeah.
You showed up with the learner hat on, and you weren't scared to just, I don't know, this is new to me. Like, there's a lot of stuff here that I don't know. I'm like, man, I mean, you may not have said it that way, but
Yeah.
I was like, okay, he's got a different kind of sauce, and I like that sauce. And over the years we were able to connect. So, dude, thank you, man. Thank you for your time, and man, thank you for your wisdom, because I know it's going to help some people out there. There's no doubt in my mind that I'm going to get some feedback from somebody that listened to your episode, and that it's going to give them permission to be vulnerable. Without a doubt, you are going to have that effect. So we'll wrap it up, my man. Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was awesome. I didn't realize an hour had gone by already. So it was tremendous. It was tremendous. Thank you for having me. It's been a privilege. It's always great to talk to you. But I deeply appreciate the opportunity to get some things out that I didn't realize I needed to get out.
All right.
So a little bit of therapy session. Hope you don't charge me a fee for this.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you for sure.